Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the press room. We're very pleased to see a full room. We have the pleasure of having HRVP Kallas with us today with Commissioner Kubilius. Ms. Kallas will do the college readout and also take the point on the defence package, then along with Commissioner Kubilius. We'll start with this, and then, as you know, after this presser, we'll have a separate press conference with Commissioner Albuquerque on the Savings and Investment Union and with Executive Vice President Séjourné on the Steel Action Plan. Without further ado, HRVP Kallas, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to do this college readout for the first time. So this morning we adopted several files related to the white paper on the future of European defence and REARME Europe plan, Readiness 2030, including two pieces of legislation to strengthen the European defence industry while proposing the necessary flexibilities in expenditures. We will delve into details on these proposals shortly, and I will be happy to answer your questions together with Commissioner Kubilius. In addition, the College also adopted a comprehensive plan for Savings and Investments Union. Commissioner Albuquerque will provide a detailed presentation on this plan immediately after this press conference. And later today, Executive Vice President Séjourné will host a third press conference here in the press room to outline the steel and metals plan, which was also adopted this morning. So we can now turn to the white paper on the future of European defence and REARME Europe plan, so Readiness 2030. When it comes to defence, then what we invest in defence actually shows how we value defence. And for the past decades, we haven't put a very high importance on it. The international order is undergoing changes of a magnitude not seen since 1945. This is a pivotal moment for European security. It is a pivotal moment for action. Yes, that the needs of additional funding are massive. The proposals we have adopted today are also essential. But for all the important discussions needed on increasing defence spending, the value we add by working together is priceless. It gives us competitive advantage that is unrivaled anywhere in the world. Together we are always stronger. The white paper on defence, Readiness 2030, is our proposal for how we can work together. And the REARME package brings the financing possibilities to do it. So 3 points. First, making European countries stronger against any military threat. We have identified the capability gaps that member states have, and in line with the NATO capability priorities, we put forward ideas how to work together in order to fulfill them. This means replenishing European stocks of ammunition, weapons, military equipment, also to keep them flowing to Ukraine. And developing also large-scale pan-European projects. The EU has important added value. We can support member states to aggregate demand and harmonise requirements. We can support European industry, ramp up production capacity, and we can also support member states where they cannot do it alone, because it is either too expensive or too complex. It's faster and cheaper if you work together, and interoperability, which is also a problem for us, that the capabilities don't really work together, can be built from the start. Ukraine should be part of this work too. We have a lot to learn from Ukraine's battlefield experience. We should also be in the position to develop defence systems for Ukraine, but also with Ukraine. Member states must remain in the driving seat when it comes to defence. This is a question of national sovereignty. And that is why we must connect our work here in Brussels with the end users. That it means our member states. We do this through the European Defence Agency, through the EU military staff here in Brussels, and by bringing the EU defence ministers together regularly. We also have once-in-a-generation opportunity to strengthen Europe's industry, boost innovation and create a market for defence equipment. And Commissioner Kubilius will talk about this in more detail. Second, what we are talking about today is more than our security and defence. While some look to destabilise others, a stronger EU can keep working to support others. Because we have never seen the world as a zero-sum game. We know that wherever you are in the world, peace brings prosperity and stability. From the Middle East, including the stabilisation of Syria, which we discussed Monday at the Syria's conference, to the wider African continent, from Sahel to Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we will keep working with others who share this view, from the UK, where I was yesterday, to Australia, Canada and Japan. This is also why our partners should be part of our cooperative defence projects and initiatives too, where it makes sense for everybody's interest. And finally, Ukraine. In the white paper, we take up the proposals from the military support initiative, proposing support to Ukraine, including more ammunition, at least 2 million rounds per year, as well as air defence and drones and the training and equipping of Ukrainian brigades. This also includes direct support to Ukraine's defence industry, as well as enhanced access to space services. The new SAFE instrument proposed by the Commission will support these ambitions. Russia's economy is in a full war mode. 40% of the federal budget on the military is more than Russia spends on education, healthcare and social policies combined. Regardless of the ongoing negotiations for peace in Ukraine, this is a long-term investment in a long-term plan of aggression. Ukraine must be armed to avoid any future attacks, and we need a long-term plan to stand up to do this. To conclude, today we put forward a plan to tackle the immediate threats and the build-up European long-term defence. In doing so, we will help European countries meet their NATO capability targets. We do this not to fight the war, but to prepare for the worst, defend peace in Europe and stand strong for a world where might cannot make right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Kubilius, please.
Okay.
Yes, no need. You can.
Yeah, okay, sorry, yeah. Learning by doing. Well, first of all, thanks a lot, Kaja, for all your words and for our cooperation in drafting white paper. Of course, also thanks and gratitude to all our teams and services. There was a lot of job to be done. So thanks to everybody. On this occasion, I would like to stress also the role of the Commission President. President von der Leyen, from the very beginning of this mandate, made defence a clear priority for this Commission. And just yesterday, she repeated in Copenhagen the essence of what all of us need to do. I quote, "If Europe wants to avoid war, Europe must get ready for war." End of quote. As you remember, intelligence services, for example, of Germany and Denmark, recently publicly announced that, according to their knowledge, Kremlin is preparing to test NATO Article 5 before 2030. That is why we need to have a roadmap for Readiness 2030. Because we need to act big. And those are also the words of President von der Leyen. There are 4 key priorities in the white paper, or as we can call it, the roadmap to Readiness 2030. I will not go very much into detail, but simply just to remind you what the white paper is about. First of all, surge in defense spending, creation of opportunity for member states to reach 3.5% of GDP defense spending. Second, closing capability gaps, not only having in mind wars of today, but also having in mind wars of tomorrow. It includes massive production of the same, as some experts are saying, also development of strategic enablers, where we have a lot of dependencies, and also implementation of defense projects of common European interest, also related with disruptive technologies. Third, increasing support to Ukraine. What, again, quoting Commission President, we can say this is still porcupine strategy. And REARME Europe gives all the member states new possibilities to strengthen our support to Ukraine. And the fourth, strengthening Europe's defense industrial base, overcoming fragmentation, pushing for more of European investment, collaborative procurement, and really we need to understand that the defense industry is a strategic resource for defense, which sometimes we need to remind ourselves why we need to invest European. And of course, a very important job in order for defense industry to move ahead will be with simplification omnibus, which we need to present in June. And now we are getting a lot of inputs from different member states and industries about the problems which they are facing, including with too much of bureaucracy, too much of regulation, sometimes misunderstanding with the interpretation of some existing regulations, for example, related with green transition, and that is what we shall need to clarify and to make all the possibilities for defense industry to expand without any obstacles. In short, this is what white paper is about. But for me, this white paper is also the end of 100 days of reflection, very intensive days of reflection, with very valuable input from the majority of member states, a huge number of seminars and conferences, individual meetings with prime ministers, ministers, parliamentarians, defense and space industry leaders, experts and associations. This process of preparation of white paper and also the geopolitical developments around us brought us to a clear convergence of our views on what we need to do with our defense capabilities in Europe. This is how this roadmap to 2030 was born, which is just a beginning of the road, and not an easy one. Today is not only the end of an initial period of reflection, it's also the start of joint action to mobilize Europe's industrial and economic might to deter aggression and prevent war. That is why from now on our priority is implementation, implementation, implementation. Putin will not be deterred if we shall read the white paper to him. He will be deterred if we shall turn the white paper into action, and if we shall use it to build very real drones, tanks, artillery for our defense. That is our ambition, to deter Putin with clear evidence that we are not only strong in our economy, but also that we are stronger with our democratic political will and our defense capabilities. That is why implementation is so crucial. It is absolutely clear that to begin implementing Readiness 2030, we need a surge in defense spending. The SAFE proposal the College adopted today is crucial for building up our defense industry and making sure member states have the weapons they need. Member states must join forces with other member states, European Union, EAA countries and Ukraine, and they will be having possibilities to procure from European industries. And this proposal, what is again very important, fully integrate Ukraine, both as a supplier and as a participant of procurement. And it will create totally new possibilities for member states to surge their support to Ukraine. And with a communication on defense expenditure within the Growth and Stability Pact, which we adopted also today, we propose greater flexibility on the national escape clause for defense spending. 1.5% of GDP for defense will be excluded from deficit calculation. And in conclusion, We need to remember two basic principles when we are talking about defense. First, defense is a collective good. The defense readiness of individual member states is an expression of the basic European value of solidarity. Our security depends on our ability to implement collective defense. Collective defense can only be effective if all member states invest into appropriate development of their national defense capabilities. Without this kind of investment, defense of other countries is weakening. And second, 450 million European Union citizens should not have to depend on 340 million Americans to defend ourselves against 140 million Russians who cannot defeat 38 million Ukrainians. We really can do better. It's time for us to take responsibility for the defense of Europe. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. And we can open the floor. Thomas, please.
Thanks a lot, Thomas Kutschka with Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. I have two questions. The first one is to the Defense Commissioner. When this discussion started a while ago, it started with a proposal by two member states for a flagship project, which was basically a common air defense shield. Now, reading the white paper, I realize that you identify gaps, but there are absolutely no flagship projects in it. So my question is, why did you not pursue this path and deliver on this request? And the second question goes to the HRVP. So we learned today that the cutoff date is 2021, when combined average spending by EU member states was at 1.5%. Adding 1.5% brings it to 3%. Does this mean that this is the new level of ambition that should be pursued by member states? Of course, it's different for anyone, but the new average level of ambition. Thank you.
Good. Commissioner Kubilius, thank you.
Oh, again, I'm pressed. So, thanks a lot for a very good question. I would maybe simply will clarify. Definitely, when we're talking about our capability gaps and what we need to do in order to fill them, we're talking about three angles of approach. One is massive production of the same, as I say, of conventional ammunition and things like that. Second is development of so-called strategic enablers, which is, refueling capabilities, cargo airlift capabilities, space intelligence capabilities, where we need to develop our own possibilities, our own systems. And the last one is, of course, so-called defense projects of common European interest, including air defense system. That is very clearly written into my mission letter, and that is why I would simply say that we are not forgetting. Simply what we are looking for, that now with implementation stage of white paper, we shall go really much more deeply and concretely into developing some language of the options of so-called defense projects for common European interest, with a goal to present those options to the Council perhaps in June. Because member states need to decide which kind of defense projects of common European interest they are ready to implement in the next stage.
Yes. Thank you. It is clear that we are in a totally new area. A new international order is being shaped. And if you look back in the Cold War area, then all the countries in NATO were spending more than 2%, some even more than 5% of their GDP on defense. And why? Because the threat was real. Now we don't have a Cold War, but we have a hot war on European soil, and the threat is existential. It's as real as it can get. So yes, we need to do more. Whether the new level of ambition is 3%, 4%, or 5%, I wouldn't get stuck to the numbers, but rather the capability gaps that we have, and we have also addressed them in the white paper. That is air and missile defense, that is artillery systems, that is ammunition, missiles, drones, counter-drone systems, military mobility, AI, quantum, electronic warfare, strategic enablers. So these all cost a lot of money. And the point of the white paper is that we can do them together because it's not only national defense but actually regional. And by doing them together, we can also spend less on the capabilities but have them in place. So I wouldn't get stuck to the numbers, but yes, I agree that the new level ambition is higher than 2%.
Yes, please, Philippe.
Hello, I'm Florentin Collomb from Le Figaro from France. Yesterday, the President of the Commission suggested that the Commission itself could act as a buyer of equipments for the Member States. You haven't mentioned that. Is it a possibility that you're seriously looking at, or is it just a suggestion that she made to be discussed for further development in the future?
You want to go?
Well, this is a language from white paper as a possibility for member states to agree that Commission can sometimes, be in such kind of assistance. But it's not only Commission can play such a role, because what is the logic of white paper on development of our capabilities very much accent on what we call collaborative procurement or joint procurement, which is one of the most important instruments for us to try to diminish the problems, systemic problems of our defense industry, which is very much fragmented, and you know that also we are spending quite a lot of money outside of our defense industry. So in order to go for joint procurement, we need to have some structures which would help member states to be effective with implementation of joint procurement projects. And here are different possibilities, like European Defence Agency, like some other possibilities related with NATO, or Commission also can play such kind of role, which was done with, first of all, with the implementation of so-called DIRPA program.
Yes, if I may add, we have the European Defence Agency that is underused, I would say. So we definitely don't need to create any new competencies or any new structures if we have already structures in place. The competence on defence spending is, of course, with the Member States. It's only when they want to act together, then European Defence Agency can bring something, additional value also to the table to make it easier and make it cheaper and to find all those ways. Thank you.
Henry, please.
Henry Foy, Financial Times. Thank you for the floor. The proposal as written excludes third countries other than Norway and Ukraine, so notably the US, UK, Turkey. The UK exclusion in particular will be a really big problem for many Italian, Swedish, German companies in particular. So my first question is, do the two of you agree with excluding those countries? And was there any debate inside the college about this French bi-European push? And secondly, you're talking about urgent needs, you're talking about a rapid scaling up. Aren't you worried that this proposal will be derailed by the exact same fighting between member states that has held up EDIP for more than a year on this same third country issue? Thank you.
Would you like to start, Commissioner?
Well, I would say a few things. The question is who can participate as countries which are procuring weapons. So that is, in a very clear way, it's described in the SAFE regulation. And And there is possibility also for, well, you know, member states, also Norway, Ukraine, but also candidate countries, succeeding countries, potential candidates, and also the countries which have partnership agreements. And the European Union is building those partnership agreements with new and new countries, and that is what we consider as very important. Second is from where and what, you know, what contractors can be used in this, you know, SAFE agreement for SAFE program implementation, or from where you can buy equipment. So first of all, again, those regulations are quite traditional ones. They were done in EDF, they are now put into EDIP. Also in EDIRPA it was more or less very similar. So contractors should be established in European Union or such countries like Norway or Ukraine. Plus third countries can be also part of the procurement if they are established. Third country entities can be also participants in the contracts if they are established in European Union territory and after special screening. And the last point is that there is possibility for to procure from other countries if there will be bilateral agreements. This is something new. So that is opening also possibilities for different, you know, options, and that is, you know, what we can say. It's nobody is excluded.
Yes, I will add to that. So first, I think we have this opportunity window to really build up the European defence industry. And I mean, we are in this situation, what we see also with Ukraine. If they use weapons that are not produced in Ukraine, then sometimes there are limitations on how you can use those weapons. And in terms of crisis, I mean, your military needs to really have free hands in this regard. So that is coming from this situation. So, like Andrews was also already explaining, all the countries that are within the same categories, and when it comes to UK, for example, then we are working on really, you know, having this defence and security partnership with UK. I'm really hoping that for the summit, which is in May, we can have results. But of course, like you know, it is related to member states and also different worries. But I want to say that I think the understanding that we need to do more and we need to do together is there, and which means that we have been able to keep our unity so far, and I'm sure that we are able to keep our unity in the future, because this is really our strength. Thank you.
Anne.
Now it's working. Ana Matos Neves with the Portuguese news agency Lusa. I have a question regarding funding. Why is the Commission only asking for financial predictability in the next MFF instead of talking about concrete future programs? Are the new Eurobonds, as by Portugal and Spain, for instance, for defense completely out of question? And what is the Commission expectation on the country's feedback regarding SAFE and REARME in general? Thank you so much.
Well, if I may start, you know, predictability is very crucial. That's what we are working on. But as I said, both white paper and REARME Europe proposals are the first step. We shall see how things are going on. We expect that those possibilities which now are created with safe regulation and with possibility for escape clause to be used by national governments really will be attractive. I would remind that the loans, European loans, which now we are proposing for member states, 150 billion loans, are very similar in their construction with what was done back during pandemic, so-called SURE instrument. And at that time, around 20 countries were using this possibility. to have cheaper loans, and they would be able to get loans from the market. So that's one thing which we consider. That of course there are countries which can be which have their own ratings better than or similar or on a similar level like European AAA ratings, and they will perhaps not use those loans. But loans and SAFE, what we need to understand, is also bringing some practical benefits for member states who will participate in this project. First of all, it opens the doors for being really much more effective in supporting Ukraine. Second, it opens the doors for have much more quick procurement procedures with possibility to open contracts which will be which will exist, and to go in such a way. And second, also, it opens the doors for VAT exemption. So there are attractive points which we expect that member states will look into that. And of course, we shall go with a lot of all the different possibilities to explain to member states why they should use this opportunity. So we shall follow very closely. You know that the graphic and calendar is quite tight. It's 6 months for member states to present their request. And we shall see how we can, what else we need to do. We don't want now to jump into next, possibilities or new possibilities, because, definitely if we shall start to speak that there will be very quickly some other possibilities, it can damage, how member states will look into what is offered now. So let's wait and see.
Yes. I will add to that. First, MFF discussions are, coming up. So that's why these discussions are separate. And if we put something very concrete right now forward, then everybody wants their projects in. And that is the problem that we had right now, although we have our priorities. Then your question about how are the member states taking it. First, when we had 2 weeks ago the extraordinary council, then member states were very positive about the REARME part of this paper, and tomorrow we will definitely discuss and we will know more with the member states. But what can I tell you is that we have been working intensively with the member states to have their ideas on board and also their worries reflected, so I hope that they take it also well. Thank you.
Good. And we will need to take the two final questions because our members of the college have some interinstitutional commitments. I will take one question online, even though we have several, but we also have several still in the room. So Francis Schwarzkopf, please.
Schwarzkopf from Bloomberg News. I was hoping you could detail a little bit what role investors are expected to play in terms of financing the rearmament, and what changes you might be making, especially to the sustainable finance framework, in order to augment investor interest in the industry.
Was the question clear? Or if not, maybe you need to repeat because it was a bit cut, Francis. Can you just reformulate briefly?
Yeah, okay. Yes, thank you. I will. If you could please elaborate on what role investors, institutional and retail investors, are supposed to play in the funding of the rearmament initiative, and whether there will be any changes, particularly in the sustainable finance framework, in order to encourage investors to invest in the military buildup.
If I may, starting from the last question part on sustainable financing. So, as I said even before, we do not see any problems for financial resources to be allocated to development of defense industry. Any problems coming from sustainable financing regulations related especially with green transition. But the problem sometimes is maybe interpretation, or sometimes of how financial institutions understand those regulations. We are working very closely with financial institutions both with EIB and private banking. We had very important roundtable discussion. We see really the changes in the attitude of financial institutions, how they perceive investment into defense. Some financial institutions are saying that for them it's a question of their reputation if they are investing into defense industry. Others were saying that if they will not invest into defense industry, that will be the problem with their reputation, that they are starting to move really into investment into defense. And of course we shall continue with the European Investment Bank, which exactly this week will make perhaps very important decision on their opening towards investment into issues related with defense. Now, what we expect from investors in general to invest into defense industry, that's my very simple point. Defense industry will need a lot of financial additional resources to expand, because member states will come with quite a big new demand, aggregated demand with new contracts, and you can just guess, how big those possibilities, those demands will be. And I think that investors are looking very, very, very clearly, into exactly those new possibilities. So when we are looking into the development of the market, it's becoming very clear that European defense industry now is on a positive trend. So investors should not waste the time.
And if I may add, yes,
should be working.
Yes, it's working now. So if I may add to that, the point is that we have to really have the public capital as well as private capital, and that's why we have in the white paper also removal of obstacles related to access to finance. And actually it's related to the other point we discussed also in the college today about the savings and capital markets. So the obstacles of finance are related to different aspects, but I mean, in detail, we are coming in the defense omnibus with all the regulatory improvements that we need to do. But of course, like Andres was saying, there's already a movement going, and the European Investment Bank plays a huge role in this. Thank you.
Indeed, it's a good segue into the next press conference, and we take a final question from my left. David, please.
Thank you. David Carretta, Radio Radicale, Italian radio. A question which is more political. Do you think that the strategic thinking of member states is the same? Are they perceiving the threat in the same way? Because if I look at some countries, for example, the one that I know best, well, they don't fear a war with Russia. They fear much more migrants, for example, or other, let's say, threat, if you would use that word. And the second point, which is correlated, is Europe able to defend itself if the leader of the free world will not be anymore the US under this administration? Thank you.
Thank you. So, is the strategic thinking the same everywhere? I'm not sure. I think no, because we have different countries. But if we talk to each other, then in the European Union, every leader understands the threat. Now, the question is also to talk about this threat to the public, because the public perception, like you say, is different in the countries that are much further away from the war. But I urge you to look at the map and see how small Europe really is in this regard. Everything can happen very fast. And in addition to that, we already see, the hybrid attacks, or like Secretary General Rutte says, it's state-sponsored terrorism, is happening everywhere, all across Europe. I think we need to talk to the public everywhere in Europe to really explain this, because the problem with defense expenditure and investment is when you need it, it's too late. You have to make the decisions when it's peacetime, when actually you don't have the feeling that, we don't really need this. We need to invest in more. But if we don't invest in defense now, then in 3-5 years' time, we have nowhere to take this from. And then it's too late. And then I don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we think that, we should have made that decision then, because we don't have the option to redo things. And if the conflict with investing in defense is that when you do it, when you do enough of defense investments, then it actually deters so that you don't have a war. So if we want to prevent the war, we need to invest more in defense, and we need to do it now when it is peacetime. Thank you.
Very briefly, very good questions. Well, first of all, about strategic thinking. Definitely, there is perhaps different perceptions of the threats in the north, in the east, in the south. That is quite natural. But you mentioned not only defense, but also migration. And I remember our experience back in the country which I know the best, in Lithuania, back in 2015, 2016, when really Italy, Greece, Spain, some other countries in the Mediterranean were hit very heavily by immigration crisis. And we were looking that this is not our problem. This is, the South, well, they should, manage to manage this crisis on their own. We were quite indifferent. Till 2021, when we were hit by this, weaponized or instrumentalized migration, crisis by Lukashenko and Putin on our borders. So we learned the lesson that solidarity is a crucial European value. And if one country or one region is hit by any kind of problems, we should not stay, indifferent. The same with defense. Defense is a collective good. I was saying that, that the defense in Europe, defense is a collective good, and only collective defense is a really effective one. So our region believes and trusts that other countries will fulfill their NATO obligations, will spend 2% or even more, because our defense will depend on the capabilities of other countries. That's one thing, what all of us we need to understand. And the last point, Italy has very strong defense and space industry. Very strong. I would repeat that, Leonardo is the strongest European defense company. And this is, also good jobs. What people could understand that really now for defense industry is coming very important moment to expand and to increase and to create new jobs. And it would be strange if Italy would not look into such a possibility. So on our capabilities to defend ourselves, if our transatlantic partners will shift. Again, this is quite a natural development which we were talking about for the last 10 years. That definitely with rising Chinese military power, perhaps Americans will shift to more and more of their attention towards Indo-Pacfic. In Europe we're living and we are starting to move only when we are really hit by the crisis. That's, I'm always repeating Jean Monnet, who back in 1957, when the European Community was created with the Rome Treaty, he said that European Community will be created during the crisis, and what will be created during the crisis, that will be community. So now we are hit by the crisis, defense crisis, and we're starting to move. That is why, really, again, we need to see not only Russia as a threat, but also how things can develop with more global geopolitical developments, and where Americans will put more of their strategic attention, and we need to be ready for that. Again, I can repeat, it's quite strange when 450 million Europeans, are still almost angry, demanding 340 million Americans to defend us against 140 million of Russian nation. So we can be much stronger.
And with this We conclude, as said, our members of the College need to move on. Thank you very much, HRVP and Commissioner Kubilius. We will move on. Don't go away for the next session with the Savings and Investment Union, and on our side with Olaf.